Hey everyone, Anna from girlsonkey.com, the place to be to create and connect. Today's podcast is about how to deal with criticism as a writer, and that's from my perspective as an editor and also my perspective as a writer. Hey guys, so today we're talking about how to handle criticism, and I'm going to introduce you to a concept I created called S.A.L.T, and it's an acronym that will help you when you need to sit down and deal with some criticism that you've received about your work. So the first thing to remember when you come across criticism is that we need to think about an element of trust. So in the relationship that you have with the person, are they a friend? Are they someone who you've approached specifically to get some critique or some feedback on your work? Are they an editor? Because that will make a difference in terms of how you respond and how you deal with the critique or the criticism. So when there's not that trust there or that relationship, then it doesn't give the environment or the context where these type of things can be dealt with constructively if there's negative criticism involved. So you might want to think about who you approach with your work. Sometimes friends can be well-meaning, but they might not have the expertise or the understanding of your work or your craft. And so if somebody has approached you with unsolicited criticism, that's quite different because you don't necessarily have to listen to that. You know that they don't come from a background of skill or expertise in your area, so you can discount it if you choose to. You can always discount any criticism you receive actually, but there's more chance of being able to take it on board and take it with a grain of salt if it's somebody who you are working with in a professional context, like an editor, or someone who you've approached for feedback, such as a first reader of your manuscript. So when it comes to the acronym S.A.L.T, there's 4 things that I'd like you to remember when you are dealing with a specific piece of criticism that's really got your hackles up. So you're feeling upset, maybe you're feeling hurt or offended, and it can affect your relationship with the person as well if they're a family member or a close friend. So you want to deal with it in a way that's going to be constructive. So S.A.L.T stands for S, step back, A, analyze, L, let go, and T, time out. So I'll start with the S. So the S for step back. So when we receive criticism, quite often it brings up our insecurities, our fears about our work. You might feel like it's unfounded, or you might feel like this person is having a go at you and also taking it personally, so having it as a reflection of who you are. So taking a step back can be a really good idea, just if that means cutting off social media and contact with this person for a few days until you can just sort of sort through your feelings or your issues about it, or maybe just go and sit for a while, even if it's just a short time, just to cool off and just to do something else to distract you until the difficult feelings have kind of passed or settled down a little bit. Because when we initially have something that offends us, we can have quite strong emotions, and we don't want to be reactive in that space because that can cause issues later on, particularly if it's in a professional context. So you really want to nurture those relationships, and you really want to be diplomatic and assertive in your approach so that you can find the best result. And so you don't want to do anything that's detrimental to that relationship. So really take some time to step back and to think about how you're going to approach the communication around the issue. The next point is analyze, A. Sometimes we want to get to the root of why we're feeling upset before we think about how we communicate our feelings. We need to know what those feelings are. So are we fearful about how people perceive us? Are we fearful about a specific aspect of our work that we're insecure about, or something that creative problem that we are grappling with that we're not quite getting? And so when someone else brings it up, it makes us feel hurt because we haven't quite found the solution, whereas they might have come to conclusions for us. Or they might not understand us, we might feel misunderstood. So what are the feelings that have come up for you? So maybe you want to journal it or write it down and think about, have an analytical mind when it comes to looking at what are the actual issues here. Is there a clash of values? Is this not the right person? So you've made a mistake in approaching them with your work. They don't get you, they don't understand you, or are they just being mean? Are they trying to criticize, or where are they coming from? So have a look and think about their motives as well, because that will really help. So have a think about their motives as well, and maybe ask them, what did you mean by that, or where are you coming from when you say that? Because having an understanding of the context and the motivation it'll give you a bit of a background and take some of the sting out of it, perhaps, depending on the situation. So obviously the SALT acronym comes from the phrase, take it with a grain of salt. And you're trying to get to the grain of truth. Sometimes when there is a criticism, there is often a part of it that is true, a part of it that you can take away for yourself. And so we're wanting to analyse and to get to the bottom of it, to find the thing that is useful to you, if there is anything. Sometimes there might not be, but sometimes there is something that you can take away from it, regardless of the motivation behind it or how it was presented to you. Now, the other thing when it comes to analysis is thinking, is it actually the way that it was delivered? Were they abrupt in their approach, but actually what they're saying is valid? Sometimes when we want someone to like us, or we value their opinion highly if they're a spouse or a close friend, sometimes that can colour how we receive criticism from them, and it can create confrontation because we are too close to that person. So when we've stepped back and we're starting to analyse, it gives us a little bit of perspective on the situation. And also, if we think about who the person is and our relationship to them, it will also give us tools as to how to communicate with them. And we might be able to ask someone else, if it's an editor who they know, we might be able to say, have you dealt with them in the past? Are they always this abrupt? Have you had criticism from them, and how did you deal with it? And so just a little bit of analysis will just give you some hard data so that you feel a bit more confident when it comes to having the difficult conversations. So the next point is let go, L. So are there any ideas or lines or concepts that you're holding too tightly? Sometimes, and as a musician, when I've written music, sometimes I've had a line that, because I've repeated it so many times, it's quite difficult to let that particular line go when I'm collaborating, and that can be hard. And I've come across that before, where I was so tightly involved in wanting this line that when somebody else suggested something different, my brain almost couldn't get out of its rut. So trying to have an open mind is good, because then you can think, well, am I just holding on to this for the sake of it, but actually something else might work better? And it does take a little bit of swallowing our pride at times when we're collaborating or working with others, because often we think of our own work as an extension of ourselves, and so our pride can be dented when we are criticised, and it can feel like somebody is criticising us as a person, whereas they're not. They're actually, most of the time, most people would be giving their criticism with the view to help you. Whether you want their help or not is a different question, but it just means that if someone's wanting to really help you with your work and they do have the expertise or skills, say they were an experienced editor with lots of great books under their belt, then that's someone that you really do want to listen to. And so take those things into account, because that's quite important. The last letter in our acronym is T, which stands for take action. So whether that is dealing with the person directly and trying to get to the bottom of what they're saying, whether that's reading between the lines or asking them about their motivation, or trying to get to the grain of salt that you can take from it, it's important that we do take action. Sometimes we can stew in those feelings, we can stop writing, we can allow it to halt our creative process because of our emotional reactions, and so don't let that be the case for you. Once you have taken the time out, once you have stepped back and analysed and you've let go of preconceived ideas, then it's time to take action. So whether that means taking on board what they're saying and editing your work, or whether it means talking to someone else about it, taking it to someone to get a second opinion, or talking to the person directly. So whichever of those methods works for you, ask a friend, ask someone you trust, and find an expert if that's what you need. So I hope that some of these tips, the SALT acronym, has been helpful for you today. If you have ever experienced criticism and have dealt with it in different ways, or you have any other ideas about how you can deal with it, please do drop them in the comments. Other people will really appreciate that, I think. And we will be back with more of the YouTube video rather than the podcasts, but for now this one's a podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Just to recap, so when dealing with criticism, you can use the SALT acronym, taking it with a grain of salt, step back, analyse, let go, and take action. So thanks for subscribing, thanks for listening and watching, and we look forward to talking to you in the next video.